When we got to Days of Future Past, Ian McKellen was going to be in the same movie as me. So I called him up and I was like, how do you feel about doing my accent, Ian? No, we never had that conversation. Hi, I'm Michael Fassbender, and this is the timeline of my career.
Christensen.
Lieutenant Spears.
I got the name right, didn't I? Christensen?
Yes, sir.
I first discovered acting when I was 17. I just had figured out that I wasn't going to be a lead guitarist in a heavy metal band because it just wasn't good enough. And then I went to Drama Centre London. I dropped out after the Christmas show in my third year. I've had recurring dreams where I've gone back to drama school to finish the last 6 months, which shows that there's some sort of like psychological effect that's had on me.
Oh, Keith, you're sitting on your bayonet there? Why don't you leave the singing to Luz?
When I got cast in Band of Brothers, I was working nights in a warehouse. It was a more physical job than I had planned, but I realized that I was just so tired during the day because I was doing night shift. So it was like start at like 8 o'clock at night, finish at 7 in the morning. And I just didn't have the energy to go to auditions. I wasn't getting any anyway, but I felt like I really didn't want to go to them because I was just so tired. And then I thought, wait a sec, something's got to change here. And then I got an audition for Pearl Harbor and Band of Brothers. I think within like 2 weeks, I auditioned for both those jobs. I did a good audition for Pearl Harbor, but they cast Ben Affleck. I don't know why. And they actually wrote back to me. It was a sweet response that, you know, was good for my confidence. And then the other one was Band of Brothers. The first day of Band of Brothers, I remember actually going to boot camp. We all got together in Hatfield, where they had shot Saving Private Ryan. We all met up there and we got into all our army gear, and then we got in a bus and we headed off to boot camp for 10 days. So I have really clear memories of that first day.
Our ancestors built this wall, using ancient stones from the bosom of Greece herself, and with a little Spartan help. Your Persian scouts supplied the mortar.
For 300, I think we trained for 10 weeks before we stepped in front of a camera. And because the film is so physical, I think I have maybe 4 lines in the movie maybe. So it's very much physically based character performance. And so to get in shape was key. But yeah, I just enjoyed the fact that I was, you know, getting in shape and getting paid.
I'm clear of the reasons, though. I'm clear of all the repercussions. But I will act, and I will not stand by and do nothing.
When I first met Steve McQueen, I thought the meeting went really well, and he hated me. I found out afterwards. I remember I got the script for Hunger and I was thinking, oh, you know, my mum's from Northern Ireland. I was very conscious about doing something that would show respect to everybody that comes from there. And so I went in to meet Steve and I was just immediately taken by him. He was just an original mind and an original person. I knew I was going to learn a lot working with him. And I left the meeting and I was thinking, great. And he was like, don't want to see that guy again. And it was Gary Davey, the casting director, was like, no, I really think this is the guy, you know, at least, call him back to do an audition at least. So he called me back, I did the audition, and that was it. From that day on, we became fast friends and really close.
It's a subtextual film criticism study of the work of German director G.W. Pabst. What should we drink to, sir?
Well, down with Hitler.
All the way down, sir.
Yes.
I remember when I first saw Pulp Fiction, I was just like, what is this? It was so new. And he was such an influence on me starting out as an actor. Reservoir Dogs was huge for me. So to be on set working with him was, for me, it was quite a surreal experience. Definitely pinching myself a lot on set. And, you know, he loves film. He's just an encyclopedia when it comes to anything that's been on screen. And he is so passionate, and every character that he's written, he knows and loves. So you better know and put in, the attention, the detail to everything, because he has done it. You know, even that thing of like 3, you know, that detail for me, I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I realized my dad's German, so he always counts first with the thumb. And that's such a German thing. And I was like, that detail is like classic, you know, Quentin Tarantino, to pick up on that detail, and to put it in his film, and to make it such a monumental moment in that scene in the tavern. Incredible. It was a joy working with them.
Let's just say I'm Frankenstein's monster.
What really drew me to that story, First Class, and the character was this idea of an outsider and what it feels like to be an outsider and to feel like you don't belong. And that for me was an interesting core to work from for the character, and to find the justifications in what his actions were, which again were pretty monumental, the lengths that he was willing to go to and what the motivation of that was. And essentially the core of it is just Magneto just needs a hug.
If you're in there, I'd like you to know that I agree with every word you said. We are the future.
When we did X-Men First Class, I talked to Matthew Vaughn about the accent. You know, should I go in the direction of McKellen? And Matthew was like, no, he's like, your accent's so weird and funny. It was like, I like it, you know, stick to your accent. So I was like, okay. And then when we got to Days of Future Past, Ian McKellen was going to be in the same movie as me. So I called him up and I was like, how do you feel about doing my accent, Ian? No, we never had that conversation, obviously. So I was like, okay, well, I better start trying to speak a little bit more like Ian McKellen, because we're both going to be in the film together and he's playing the older version of Magneto. So I actually changed it in Days of Future Past because we were both in the same film.
Are you still Charles's Raven? Or are you Mystique?
You wouldn't notice it if you watched it. That just because it was all in my head.
This isn't working out. Obviously. You need to find somewhere else to live.
I don't have anywhere else to go.
It's a very particular addiction. Let's say you're addicted to alcohol. It's an external thing that you're bringing in. And so it's something that you can exist without, you know. Whereas when it's sex or food, those sort of relationships, I think it's super difficult, because these are things that are innately within us, you know, to reproduce. You have somebody who's longing for that intimacy but can't deal with it. You know, anything intimate is just like a rash. But then at the same time doing very intimate acts with somebody, having that compulsion to do it, super complicated. I mean, I met somebody who Brandon was based on, and just sitting down talking with him was a big help and an insight into that sort of headspace. But for sure, for me, that was definitely the darkest of places for me as a character. Steve has got like a lot of special qualities, but also I found he was always very accessible with his intelligence. Anytime he was trying to explain something, it was in a very practical way. And it was also coming from a personal place a lot of the times. He would reveal something about himself. The main key thing, and I think I speak for all actors that have worked with Steve, I think I can do that confidently, is trust. There's such a feeling of trust on set. And trust is the key thing. You're opening yourself, you're naked in a lot of respects, and showing real sort of sides of yourself and vulnerabilities. You've got to go to those places that are not easy to go to. And he's also somebody that instills a lot of confidence in your instinct. You know, trust your instincts. Don't second guess yourself. Again, because you're in the hands of somebody who is so brilliant, you can allow yourself to go to those places because you know that he's going to take care of you.
Manamai, kiana murtu steda, kuiva, on itam sa stater kreda.
When I first came on set for Prometheus, Ridley was like, oh, watch the film The Servant. And Dirk Bogart's character, I was like, oh, great, I love that when there's like a film to take, you know, some inspiration from. And then when I arrived on set, he was like, he's like a butler, you know, he's like, checks the dust. And that alone, I was like, I was off to the races. I knew exactly there and where I was going. And also the fact that this character is obsessed with Lawrence of Arabia and this film. I was like, wow, that's such an interesting little quirk.
Well, what's the trick then?
The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts.
The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts.
I think the interesting thing for David watching Lawrence of Arabia is it's sort of this idea of God and creation. And I think it's a great character in terms of what he's achieved, what he can achieve, you know, defying all the odds. But there's some tragedy within the character, and I think he finds that maybe curious, you know, studying the human condition. And the idea of an AI becoming obsessed with something, I think, is kind of scary in itself, whatever it is. You know, why has he sort of, you know, honed in on this particular thing? There's something quite unsettling about that, or unbalanced.
Come on, where's your merriment? Move your feet!
I think, you know, dealing with a character like Epps, who does such, you know, horrendous things, there was a couple of things with the character. First of all, he's not a very intelligent man, and he's got a lot of power, and that's so scary. But then the core of the relationship, which really is Patsy, he's in love with Patsy, but there's no way that he can process that. He doesn't have the tools to do it, the time that it is, his position, his emotional and limited intelligence. The results are horrific. And you know, when Steve was talking about all the characters in 12 Years a Slave, there was never an approach to Epps in terms of a judgment. I think that's super important when you're dealing with characters that do really despicable things, is just trying to sort of understand them and facilitate them and facilitate what they're supposed to do in the story, and not to let like judgment get in the way of that, because he's got such an important part of all of the character stories in there, you know, Patsy and Solomon. It's such an important part that you have to do justice to it, and by doing justice to it, you can't judge it.
Moon standing tuft defies the foot.
Super liberating to work with masks. And you know, it's something that if I'm doing workshops with students, or, you know, Commedia dell'arte is a great tool to sort of, you know, let go and get rid of inhibitions. Putting on a mask is very powerful like that. And certainly that was the case with Frank. I knew that it was, again, physically trying to represent what was happening inside the head. That was a lot of fun. And also the lack of movement says a lot, because you now allow the audience to do some work. So the audience are coming there, they're watching this character, and they're projecting what they are seeing or thinking or feeling onto that character. So it's really interesting like that. With masks, you don't necessarily have to do a lot. Actually, by being still, a lot can be communicated.
A long time ago, you asked me a favor before a product launch, and I said no. You wanted me to acknowledge the...
If you're about to say you were wrong, I want to prepare this journalist.
I was 100% right, and you were spectacularly wrong.
I just remember when I first read the script, I was like, this is incredible. It's the best thing I've ever read. He's such a brilliant writer that it's very hard to edit what he writes, because everything's interlinked. It's like a brick, you pull it out of the wall, the whole wall comes down. So you can't edit him. It's there, it's got to stay there.
I don't have any trouble remembering that, John, because of it being the worst night of my life. And I forced the vote because I believed I was right. I still believe I'm right, and I'm right.
There's a cadence to how the dialogue has to be spoken. And if you don't jump on board with that cadence, it won't make sense. There's sense, like Shakespeare, there's a rhythm that he has written it to, and you have to obey that. And if you fall off that rhythm, you kind of get kicked off and you got to start again. There's no room for improvisation, there's no need to. Whatever's on the page is excellent. Finding the rhythm of how it's written is key to how you deliver, you know, and how you discover the character through it.
My camo is based on a German tourist I saw in London a while back. No one really wants to interact with a German tourist. Parisians avoid them like the rest of the world avoids street mimes.
It's a very precise way of working. David Fincher is obviously a master of filmmaking. And it's somebody that has done it all, you know, from working in a cinema when it was still like changing film reels to working in the camera department, obviously the director he is today. It's about everything that's in the frame. And so every day is just about fractional stuff. Everything is super precise. It was an amazing experience, I have to say, because he has such high standards again. And he holds himself, you know, accountable to those standards more than anybody else.
Object is turning speed. Hustle, hustle.
Hassle, hassle, bazzle.
You know what? Forget about it. Forget about it. Hup, 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 hup.
Head up, get low, get low.
Improvisation is a very specific thing because extensively it's like 90% of the movie is improvisation in Next Goal Wins. And you know, you're all doing it collectively. You need a good collection of people to do that. And of course, a great director to sort of be pulling all the strings, make sure that this ship has a rudder and it's going in a certain direction. You've got to be brave, you've got to like throw yourself into the scene, you've got to be prepared to fall flat on your face and make a fool of yourself and do it many times. And through that, you discover things in the scene, but really you discover it afterwards because to really do it well, you've really got to be present, you got to listen. You know, that's the great thing about improvisation. You really do have to listen because the other person's throwing something at you and you've got to be awake and alive.
Your castle awaits. Your landlord is Sione. He lives in the house next door, and he is available 7/24 to address your every need.
7/24.
7 days out of every 24.
Taika's continually throwing stuff at you. So he's like, say this, and then he'll say like 20 lines. And you're like, okay, well, I can't remember all of that, so I'll try and take the essence of it. But that's how we did, you know, that's how we shot the whole thing. There's a lot of stuff getting thrown in, and it's kind of like a blender of ideas, and then you've just got to get a flavor of it, a color of it, and then do your own thing with it. And that's kind of how the whole thing was formed. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I continue to learn. Every time I go back on a film set, I have the same doubts and fears. So when I got back on set, I was like, this is my job, this is what I do. and then, you know, the same feelings of, you know, responsibility and, like I say, doubt and passion, those things remain the same.